We are here outside a memorial which is called Trains to Life and Trains to Death. This memorial actually was made by an Israeli artist of South African origin who himself was a survivor of the children, or survived because of the children's transport. I will tell you in a moment what this is. We have Trains to Life and Trains to Death. It is a bronze sculpture on one side showing children that are in a darker bronze. You can see the empty suitcases here in the back. This is a memorial to the 1.5 million children that were murdered amongst the 6 million Jews in the Holocaust in all over Europe, not just in Germany. And then the other side of the memorial, a bit more, showing you more hopeful children with a packed suitcase, a happier face, though I think also the artist managed to express something serious in those faces, because these are children that were sent from Germany, also from this train station just behind me, in the Kindertransport. There were children, 17,000 children from Germany, Austria, and also Czechoslovakia then, that were sent mainly to Britain. Some moved on from there, some also moved to North America. And these was an initiative of the Jewish community in Germany with the approval of the Nazi government, of course, also with approval of the British and other governments to accept those refugees, those children. Many of these children parted from the Friedrichstraße train station that you can see here. And many of these children here said goodbye to their parents who remained in Germany. And as these were mainly children from families that had no other means to leave Germany, or that did not get a visa for whatever the reason was, many of their families stayed in Germany and they never saw each other again. This memorial here was, sorry, I'm trying to switch cameras, somehow it doesn't work. This memorial here was put up in 2008 by Frank Meisler and Ari Ovadia, who is an artist who worked with Meisler, and was partly made possible also by some of the people that, like David Siegel, you can see here from New York, who was one of these children of the children's transport. And as you can also see, it says in honor of his father, Marcus Siegel, a person, his father, that he has never seen again. Then next to the memorial at the train station already are markers of the events that this memorial is commemorating. Trains to Life, it says here, and I hope the camera is steady enough so you can see these pictures. These are children that are photographed on their arrival in Britain. Some were also kept in, were sent to boarding schools. Others were sent to families, sometimes Jewish, but also non-Jewish families. This in Britain was also supported by the Quaker movement that felt a responsibility here to help those children survive. And then next to here is the story of the children trained to death. It says here from 1941 until 1945. The reason that it is 1941 is that the mass deportation of Jews from Germany started in October 1941. I said only because obviously the Holocaust, the Shoah, had started already way earlier, and with the murdering of Eastern European Jews. These are children that you almost can't recognize as children that were photographed after their survival. This is a photograph from the camp of Bergen-Belsen. These were actually children that also survived because they were taking part or were forced to take part in medical experiments that were done, which many did not survive. I walk now, something like 10 minutes, maybe a bit less, walk from this train station. Maybe just to give you an overview also a bit of where it is situated. Just outside the exit of the underground train station. Many people pass by, and just before there were people sitting at this memorial with suitcases. And when I started to arrange and started to work with the camera, they immediately moved away, which is also then realized where they were sitting. They were asking me what this is. And I always like when people start even not knowing, and even if they do something that you might consider inappropriate if they know, but I think sometimes it's also very touching then that they wonder, that they ask questions, and which is what memorials should be. It should not be just something that you stand in front, that you see, and then you move away and to the next tourist site or whatever it is. This will become very relevant for us also later at the massive memorial of the murdered European Jews, which is the official title of the memorial next to the Brandenburg Gate, very often in short called Holocaust Memorial. Yes. Today on our tour, we are going to walk, for those that have been in Berlin. Is there anybody in the group that has been in Berlin? Okay.
Yes, many times.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
A few times.
Wonderful. Yes. Feel free to add, to ask things. Yes. You're also free to share a personal story, because I think for today, I want this less to be a historic tour packed with lots of information, but also get a bit of a feel for this day, to marking this day. Though in Berlin, actually, there is no official ceremony on this day, as the official Holocaust Remembrance Day since 1996 by decree of the then president Roman Herzog, which was then approved by the Bundestag, that the 27th of January, the day of liberation of Auschwitz, also is the official Holocaust Memorial Day, a day when you have a government ceremony and a special assembly meeting in the Bundestag, which you should be able to see. I have so much sun on my screen that I can't see. So I'm trying, wait 1 second. No, it's the brightest. Yeah, so if you ever, I tell that you see something and you don't see it, feel free, please let me know. Yeah, but you can see the Bundestag here with the dome. 1996, there are official ceremonies, not in this building, because in 1996, yeah, the Bundestag was still in the old German, West German capital of Bonn. And it is quite interesting when you think of the fact that only in 1996 was there an official Holocaust Memorial Day in Germany. And also on our tour today, you will realize that many of the sites I'm going to show the things that are on our way, that are marked with markers or plaques in the ground. These were all initiatives from the 90s, so after the unification of Germany. As a matter of fact, until 2005, there was no official Holocaust memorial in Germany. There were memorials. Most of the memorials were at the sites where the Holocaust had happened. And the reason for that has a lot to do with the fact that also there was an idea not to disconnect the history from where it had happened. Though with that also, they kind of reduced the commemoration of the Holocaust to a commemoration of the crimes. And which is on one hand, in the country where this crime had happened, the right thing to do. On the other hand, many of the victims, and I will talk about this again, they were not only victims. There were people that had a life. There were people that had hopes for their life. We just saw these children. We saw the difference of the children that were deported and the children that were that escaped. And it is very important to also commemorate the meaning of this destruction and what it meant to the population, the Jewish German population. Obviously, I will tell, because as we are in Berlin, as we are in Germany, most of the memorials here are related then to German Jews, except for the Holocaust Memorial that we're going to see outside the Brandenburg gates. Other questions or remarks towards what I've just said? Oh, sorry, that was not intended. I'm walking along the Spree River. Should walk a little bit faster to the governmental district. All this building is what you see here. This is the office building of the members of parliament. Towards the end there, you have the chancellor's office. I know this is not topic of our tour, but as we walk by, I'm just pointing it out. back to the history of Holocaust commemoration in Germany, which always has been, latest since the 60s, a commemoration which was done by the government, partly, very often initiated by the Council of Jews of Germany. And for a very long time, you felt a little bit when I grew up, I was born in 71 in Hamburg, you felt a separation of victims and perpetrators. Like the Holocaust commemoration of the victims was left to the Jewish communities, and the commemoration or marking of the crimes, commemoration of crimes sounds a bit odd, but was done by the government and like more the official commemoration. And it took a while also to understand that, first of all, the commemoration. Oh God, I'm walking into a Hare Krishna group shouting very loud. Okay. Okay, I don't know. I know it's just a person who's very okay. Sorry, I will pass by. It's a bit weird. Can you hear me? I can't hear myself because it's super loud. But so back to the commemoration, the separation of commemoration. It started actually to be a combination of both through education in schools, through schools that not just were ceremony, or because I remember that for years, the only ceremony that was directly related to an official Remembrance Day was the 9th of November as a marking of the 50 years of the anniversary of Kristallnacht. Coincidence that I'm saying it because the 9th of November also is a commemoration of something that was here crossing the river. And I'm actually walking now from East Berlin to West Berlin, the downfall of the wall happening on another 9th of November. It's an odd combination. Sorry, I accidentally turned off the video instead of changing the view. For me personally, it was also an odd combination because I happened to be born on the 9th of November. And sorry, I was almost run over by a government car. Usually there's no cars driving by. I remember from school at that time, we always learned about what had happened, but we learned about it in a very rational way, I should say. I went to school from the 70s until the end of the 80s. And just with the downfall of the wall, it was maybe also a bit related to the fact that now the war truly was over and Germany was united again as a country, and Berlin became the capital, and Berlin also being the power, the center of power of the Nazis, that this commemoration were also taking into account that not only do we commemorate when we are in Germany, Jews that were murdered, but those Jews were Germans. And they contributed to their country as Germans, as people that sometimes were patriotic, nationalistic, leftist, whoever they were, saying this outside the Bundestag building, former Reichstag building, In the Weimar Republic, his first years of democracy, we had quite a lot of Jewish members of this parliament. Quite a lot were arrested in 1933 already, sometimes because they were of parties that were persecuted, such as the Communist Party or also the Social Democrat Party, and sometimes just because they happened to be Jews. And obviously there could be different combinations also of the reasons that you were persecuted. Saying this, looking to the front of the building of the Bundestag today, you do see this inscription, Dem deutschen Volke, dedicated to the German people. And I want to elaborate on this inscription because this was put up in 1916 by a Jewish-owned foundry house who actually donated these letters to the parliament, which again, during the First World War, was not really a democratic parliament, though there were parties, but they were not all democratically elected, because a third of the members of the parliament, were elected by aristocrats, a third by very wealthy people, and only a third then by the vast majority of employees, workers, whoever it was. The Jewish Foundry House named Siegfried and Adolf, in the time where Adolf was still an innocent name, Levy, the S.A. Levy, how they call themselves. This was a family that were part of their sons fought in the First World War. Some were decorated with the Iron Cross. During the Weimar Republic, also as a reaction to anti-Semitism, the father actually convinced his son, Erich, later Glöden, to convert to Christianity. And also during the Nazi regime, that's how he changed his name, Glöden was adopted by a Protestant friend, of the family. And that was their attempt to not only save him, but also to make him keep his job, because he was working as an architect. And what is really absurd, at some point he worked as an architect for the organization Todt, which was a Nazi organization which was headed by Albert Speer. Glöden survived also because he had help from high-rank people. But many of the Levy family were deported. Some actually escaped. And there was a daughter of the family, Ruth, I forgot her maiden name was Levy, of course. I forgot the name that she married, that later lived in New York and actually was working for the German embassy, the consulate, in New York. We can't go up there right now, but if yes, I would take you to an inscription just outside the main entrance door of the Bundestag that commemorates the contribution of the Levy family. And the inscription is still there. And I think also the inscription dedicated to the German people emphasizes exactly what I said before. We talk about Germans, we talk about Jewish Germans, and we talk about many other Jews of Polish, Romanians, or whoever it were, of course, that we are commemorating today. So there is a huge empty field here, which invites people to come to rest, to have a picnic. Sometimes you see people playing soccer just inside the government district. This is called the Palast, sorry, not the Palast, the Platz der Republik, the Square of the Republic, because this is this building of the members of parliament again. Because also from here, you had from this balcony over there, you had the declaration of the first German democracy. And believe it or not, on another 9th of November, 1918. It's an odd day in German history. Obviously, those dates are not completely disconnected from each other, because one reason that the Nazis planned the spontaneous action of the people, which was not spontaneous, but against Jewish population in Germany, happened on this 9th of November, because from the Nazi propaganda, they were identifying this first German democracy as the Judenrepublik, as the Jewish Republic. I am walking now to a memorial right next to the visitors' entrance to the Bundestag. You can see people lining up, not many people. So we still have restrictions how many people can visit the Bundestag due to COVID, but we also have way less visitors in Berlin still. This here is the memorial of murdered members of the Reichstag still. It was only after the Second World War we call it Bundestag. And for example, here there is a doctor. No, so he's not a doctor. I read Hugo Zinsheimer, who was a Jewish member of the parliament from a conservative party. The idea of this memorial, made by an artist, Günther Appelt, is actually that we have pieces of metal, bronze, that look like scattered glass, but these are actually the outlines of the district that they were elected from. Yeah, there is a Richard Lipinski here. Maybe I should turn this. I think like this you can read it better, right? So it would always.
It's wonderful. You can read them well. Thank you.
So it always gives the name of the people, the party that they were member of, and with they represented in the parliament. You can see that most of them were from the KPD, the Communist Party of Germany. And this leads actually into the Tiergarten, where we will continue now, passing by another memorial, which is not related to the Holocaust of Jews, but to the only other victim group that you can compare directly to the persecution of Jews, and because they were persecuted for racial reasons. Yeah, the only other substantial victim group at about 500,000 Roma and Sinti, before called Zigeuner, but we don't use that word anymore. This is also the Nazi word they used, and which is then on our way now already to the Brandenburg Gate, where I will have another stop, not at the gate, but at the house of a very prominent Jewish family right next. We're in the Tiergarten. One reason also that this memorial of members of parliament reaches in direction of the Tiergarten is that quite a lot of members of parliament were not, I mean, they were arrested, but they were not arrested by the police yet. Many of them already as early as 1933. A lot of them spent long time sentences in German concentration camps. All concentration camps were German concentration camps, but I meant concentration camps in Germany versus extermination camps in the East. And actually also quite a lot of them were simply murdered here in the Tiergarten, as were some politicians, especially Jewish politicians, already at the beginning of the Weimar Republic to destabilize what the Nazis called the Judenrepublik, the Jewish Republic. I commemorate here Rosa Luxemburg, for example. He was the head, together with Karl Liebknecht, who wasn't Jewish, of the Communist Party, or also Kurt Eisner, politician that they were murdered, and Matthias Erzberger. So the next place, next to the Bundestag, as well as you can see here, and then you can see the memorial to the Sinti and Roma of Europe who were murdered under National Socialism, which is this passage through a place where you have a big black pond. This memorial was done by the Israeli artist Dani Karavan, who, by the way, also designed an Holocaust memorial, but this design was not accepted by the jury. The jury was partly the parliament and the people of Berlin. But he built this pond, a fountain with water running, and in the middle, you can see a triangle, commemorating the violet triangle, which was the triangle that Jews had to wear, that Roma and Sinti had to wear. And every day at noon, they replace a flower in the middle here of this memorial. And I'm trying to get a bit closer to a loudspeaker. I don't know if you can hear this sound, with a violin sound, like in the back. Can you? It's an installation, a sound installation done by a German Roma artist, that he called this sound installation the Symphony for the Dead. About 500,000 Roma and Sinti were murdered. Around this memorial, you have names of places that most of them before this memorial I have never really heard of. Yes. Perdas de Fogu, which is in Romania, Perdas de Fogu. Jasenovac, which is in Belarus. And these were places where gypsies were murdered, not only, of course, as you can see, Auschwitz-Birkenau here. This memorial was built in 2010, and the initiative already was there in the 70s, as was for the Holocaust Memorial. But it took the gypsies a very long time to get recognized as a victim group, to kind of have also support of their German state when it came to survivors of camps. And also, maybe I should remember here, for example, an incident that gypsies were recruited by Leni Riefenstahl to make a Spanish folkloristic movie, and she had ordered gypsies that would look Spanish from Auschwitz concentration camp. And some of these people that came begged her that not that they should be released actually, but if she could try to make them sent to another concentration camps. The director, Leni Riefenstahl, didn't move a finger, yes, to save these people. They were all sent back to Auschwitz. And there was a bit of a late justice here at the Brandenburg Gate. I'll just finish the story. But there was a bit of a late justice because Leni Riefenstahl, one of the last trials, and she had many trials, and none of these trials she was convicted, really. But in one of the last trials, towards the end of her life, she was over 100. She was found guilty. Nothing really happened to her. She wasn't arrested, but it prevented also a bit the reinstallation of her reputation, which was something she was trying to do with many other photography projects. Okay, now we are outside the Brandenburg Gate, and you can see this building here, which was the home of Max and Martha Lieberman. Max and Martha Lieberman sorry, the traffic light was green. I had to. Okay, 1 second. There is a guy singing. I will come to the other side of the house. Max and Martha Lieberman lived in this house until Max Lieberman died of a natural death in 1935. And Micah, did you manage to make me host? Because I wanted to share a picture.
Yes, you are host.
Okay, great. 1 second. Sorry. Now why this is upside down. 1 second. Ah. Sorry, this is not what I wanted to share first. Okay, we'll look for the picture that I wanted, but you have here a view of the square outside the Brandenburg Gate and of Max Liebermann's house at the right side of the gate. And here is a picture of Max. Are you able to see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
Great. And here is a picture of Max Liebermann coming out of a poll station, where he voted in 1932. Obviously not for the guy that you can, that is advertised at the back here. People were campaigning. 1932 was the election where the Nazis got most of the free elections where the Nazis got most of the votes, though not enough actually to form a government. This is a photograph here of the Brandenburg Gate decorated with swastika flags. Max Liebermann and his wife, and 1 second, I need to stop this. And sorry, I thought we could. 1 second, I need to find the. Somehow it does not do. This is a painting by Max Liebermann of his wife, Martha. This is Martha Liebermann in 1936 at the Jewish Museum in Berlin. There was a Jewish museum open in Berlin 6 days, before the Nazis came to power on the 3rd of January, 1933. And this is, there you can see Martha Liebermann next to the head of the Jewish community in Berlin, Dr. Hugo Stahl. And she's wearing a veil, as this was the burial of her husband in 1935. Martha Liebermann continued to live in this building until she got a letter of deportation. By the way, the building is a new building. Everything here was leveled to the ground during the Second World War, but they rebuilt the structures a bit in the shape as they looked like before. And then outside her house, where she last lived as a free person, you can see this Stolperstein. I will tell a little bit about the Stolpersteine when we are on the way to the memorial, the Holocaust Memorial. So you can see here Martha Liebermann, born Markwald. The Liebermanns and Markwalds were actually two families that made a lot of money from cotton and later from banking, which is also why they had this amazing mansion right next to the Brandenburg Gate. Max Liebermann, though he became a very famous artist and made a lot of money with his art, but not to the extent of being able to afford such a house. Martha Liebermann, 3 days before her death on the 10th of March, 1943, she got a letter of deportation, which was given to her here. Actually, there was a special Gestapo agent coming to her, giving this letter to her faithful maid, actually, that was with her, that they had obviously many employees once in this house, but that's what she could afford towards the end. And she was 86 years old when, on the eve before her deportation, she decides to take an overdose of a sleeping powder. But this, what's happening? The dose wasn't enough. So she was still alive when the next morning 2 Gestapo agents came to this house. And one Gestapo agent said, we're going to deport her anyhow. The other Gestapo agent actually said, no, she's unfit for transport. Therefore, she needs to be treated in a hospital. After she's well enough, we will evacuate her to the east, because the Nazis would never use deportation. Thank God, actually, that another law prevented Martha Lieberman from being brought to a regular hospital. Jews were only allowed to be treated at the only Jewish hospital, which was still open in town, which was functioning until the end of the war. But as Jews were not allowed to use any kind of transport at that time, they carried her on a stretcher to this hospital, which was it's like 11 kilometers from here. And so when they pumped out her stomach, it was actually too late. And it's a little comfort that she died of a death that she chose herself. Sorry, it's yeah. Leaving her this little assertion like of herself, of an independence, and which also meant that she was buried next to her husband at the cemetery, which was an initiative from also non-Jewish Germans, because there were no Jewish burials allowed anymore. But as Max Liebermann was a very famous painter, there were people that spoke up here for his widow to be, excuse me, buried next to him. Sorry, I will pass another way. Max Liebermann, from the rooftop of his house, this was this picture that I shared before. Sorry, I had could see on the 30th of January, the Nazis marching through the Brandenburg Gate. And he was up there with friends, many of them of his age, many of them coming from a very conservative background, and so was Max Liebermann. And he said a sentence that was remembered in history books until today. You can see it quoted in many exhibitions and books. He said, it's a pity that I can't eat as much as I want to throw up about what is going on in my country. And he was referring to the Nazis marching through the gate. But I also say Max Liebermann, and I am saying this also because he is kind of an example for many Germans also of his generation. Max Liebermann very late understood what was at threat during the democracy, when many of the people that in general were supportive of had liberal ideas and were supportive of a democracy, they did not support it enough. Max Lieberman, who initiated the opening of a Jewish museum, yes, which took a very long time, but he very late understood also of how important that would have been to point out what those Jewish Germans contributed to their country as Germans. And in changing the sentence, I sometimes also feel that they should have started throwing up earlier, in the sense of doing something, in the sense of being a shock about things that were going on. In 1930, in Bavaria, kosher slaughtering was forbidden, for example. That's before 1933. Same in the Saar area. Yeah? And though there were anti-discrimination laws in the Weimar Republic, many of them weren't really applied. And also many of these people were blind on their right eye. Some of them, not Jews, of course, but you might also have found some Jews that generally supported the idea of fascism, maybe not the anti-Semitism of the Nazis, but they felt that at least the Nazis are not threatening the capitalist society as the other far right, the other far extreme group on the extreme on the far left did, the communists. And many people actually supported the Nazis also because they saw them as kind of a bulwark, as a power that was outspoken against communism. But I'm getting into too many historic details. Also had to walk from the Brandenburg Gate to the official memorial to the murdered European Jews. I'm trying to lift you up a little bit with my stabilizer. We are here at the memorial of the murdered European Jews, which was opened in 2005 after a long discussion, lots of controversy. Before I want to explain about the history and also explain a little about what it represents, I would like to walk through with you There are 2,711 stelae, blocks. At first, you might think it looks a bit like caskets or like tombstones. So when I first saw it, I thought of the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, where you have this rectangular tombs, and it creates a structure. When you walk through, it looks more like empty roads, faceless structures. And when you walk through, you are disconnected from the city slowly, and probably don't know if you can realize, because this earphones I have, they have a bit of a sound reduction, yes, but it gets quieter and quieter. The main idea as this memorial is on the way from the Brandenburg Gate to Potsdam Square, which is the main entertainment area. Many people that come to Berlin will go first to the Brandenburg Gate. They'll arrive at the big train station of Potsdam Square. They walk 5 minutes, and just before they come to the gate, they literally stumble into this. There's no sign here. There's no sign pointing out what it is. And it's interesting right now, there were two girls in their teens, 16, 17 years old. I don't know if you heard them, they were very close. And one of her first questions was, what is this supposed to mean? Yes, people wonder. It's not a clear memorial like the one we saw outside Friedrichstrasse train station, where it says what it is and the sign and explanations. Here, it is a place which does not try to explain that much, at least not on the outside. There is a small museum, or it's called Place of Information, because it would be too small. It's too small to call it a Holocaust museum. I'm going to show you some photos in a moment when we'll sit down. But and so she asked, what is this supposed to mean? They continue to walk through and trust me again. And then I hear the other one saying, well, I think it actually represents the emptiness of all these people that are gone. And this shows how, in its simplicity, in its non-descriptiveness, yes, it is very effective. I sometimes think that maybe all these gray, empty blocks, there are also screens of projection for us to give it a meaning. Maybe there's something inside these blocks that we wonder. Many people start to think, okay, where do I go from here? There must be more to it. So they start looking for the entrance of this place of information. And I think this is way more effective than having a sign and an entrance gate and a fence around a memorial, a place where you especially have to go to. Here, you don't need to especially go to. You come to it. And yes, it also means that you hear people, mainly children, running through, playing hide and seek, and maybe not always being aware of where they are. but I don't really think that somebody can walk through here and think this is a happy place. Yes, and I don't think that the vast majority of people miss the idea of what this is. I was talking about people resisting a memorial. It took the first idea of a national Holocaust memorial came from a private initiative from the 70s already. It took 35 years to come up with this. There was lots of thinking. And the German word for memorial expresses exactly this. It's a Denkmal, yes, which actually means a marker to think, but you can also understand it in a way, Denkmal, yeah, think about it. Yeah. Don't just come to a place and see it, turn around, and go to the next. We're now coming out of at the other side of the memorial. And this long process, I think, is actually a very positive process. It's very positive. Oh, sorry, I wanted to switch cameras. Of people trying to come to terms with, and also of remembering of what I said before, not just the crimes, but also the people that were victims and that had, as I said in the very beginning, that were way more than victims. To some extent, is also similar to, we are in Germany, we are in the crime scene. So it's also similar to the fact that where do you bury a person in the crime scene? I mean, nobody is buried here, but where would you commemorate a person that died in a crime? You would feel highly appropriate to commemorate this person only at the crime scene, because there you would remember the crime, but then you reduce this person also to being the victim of this crime. Before, I want to show you some pictures of the underground part of the memorial. I want to read, sorry, oh, this is difficult with the sun. I want to read a poem which influenced Peter Eisenman, the architect. Oh, I didn't say it yet so far. I said it now. A New York-based New York-based Jewish architect, also with origins in Germany, that won the competition for this memorial. And he was influenced by a poem which in Germany is one of the most remembered, one of the poems that are most related to the Holocaust by, one second, I don't want to change cameras. So, okay. Do you see the memorial? Because I have the poem on my screen. No, what do you see?
Your name.
Nothing.
My name. Okay. Well, then.
Now we see the memorial.
Okay. I somehow. Okay, then what I do, I share. Sorry. I share the poem with you on the screen while reading it, and because somehow if I look at it, you can't.
We see the text now.
Do you see the text? Okay. This is technically a bit challenging. Okay. It's a poem called the Todesfuge, the Fugue of Death, that some might know. It was first read at an official ceremony of a quite famous Jewish actress, Ida Ehre, in Hamburg. And it was written by Paul Celan, who was a German poet that wrote poems about the destruction, but he always of Jews in Europe, and he also writes about the crimes, but he never forgets the other side there. So I'm going to read it. He calls out, "Play death more. Sweetly death is a master from Deutschland." And they kept the translation. They kept Deutschland in the translation. He calls, "Scrape those fiddles more. Darkly than a smoke you'll rise in the air. Then you'll have a grave in the clouds. There you'll lie at ease. Black milk of dawn, we drink you at night. We drink you at noon. Death is a master from Deutschland. We drink you evenings and mornings. We drink and drink. Death is a master from Deutschland. His eye is blue. He strikes you with lead bullets in his aim. He strikes you with lead bullets. His aim is true. A man lives in the house, your golden hair Margareta. He sets his dogs on us. He gifts us a grave in the air. He plays with the snakes and dreams. Death is a master from Deutschland. Your golden, that's not written, your golden hair Margareta, your ashen hair Shulamit. It was this black milk that influenced the architect in creating this grayish, sometimes black structures depending on light. And also it was meant to be like a reflection of the skies that the tombs are at, because people had no tomb. Many people had no tomb or no individual tomb. So the structures also tries to express not tombs, but giving the idea of an amount of the absence, also a presence of absence, of the amount of people that perished and that we are commemorating today. Micah, were you sharing the whole poem now in the chat?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I will leave my tour at that, but I'm here, and I think maybe after a moment or so of you digesting what this is, if you have questions and or remarks and or more things you want to know, I'd love to hear your voices too.
So I have a question about the
Yes.
role of religion in the discussion of the Holocaust. I've looked up sometimes, what is the role of the Protestant Church in the Nazi movement and stuff. Is that discussed much? It's an interesting topic to me, but it seems like sometimes it just gets put underneath the carpet mat.
I have to say, when it comes to commemoration, and also not just, commemoration in the sense of mentioning this event, but also talking about responsibility and reconciliation. The Protestant Church from the 50s on, and this is not the church as a whole, yes? I mean, there were streams within the Protestant Church, a lot connected to guilt, which is also something Lutherans in Germany easily connect to in many ways, not just when it comes to commemoration of this time period. Yeah, but in 1953, there was a Protestant minister, he was actually a lawyer, but he was also a trained theologist, Lothar Kreisig, who set up an organization called the Aktion Sühnezeichen, Action Reconciliation. In Germany, it's actually not just reconciliation, because a Sühnezeichen is a marker of redemption. Yeah, that's the literal translation of it, probably. Yes, which relates to reconciliation, but it's first really this idea also of admitting a responsibility and admitting a crime. Lothar Kreisig had a lot of problems coming from the church that did not want to be remembered of the fact that the vast majority of Protestant Christians joined what was called the Deutsche Christen, which was a Nazi-controlled church, basically, to the fact that in some churches they were hanging swastikas next to Jesus' cross, yes, which was also opposed by many ministers, because they also insisted on a broader division of church and state, which for Protestantism is not that clear in the first place, yes, because let's not forget the Protestant church also was the official church of Prussia. The Prussian king was the head of the Protestant churches when he was still about. When he's gone, since there were not kings anymore, obviously, there is no head of the Protestant church in the sense of like a spiritual head. The Catholics, were and still are, though they were also synodas and organizations that asked to take responsibility for mainly for the fact that they did not help, they didn't do much, yes, except there are always stories, yes, of Carmelite nuns, Edith Stein, for example, and also in Italy that helped. There was a synoda from Paul, oh gosh, I think I get the numbers wrong right now, but from the Pope in the 60s, let's leave it there, that had a Schuldbekenntnis, an admission of guilt, of responsibility. For a long time, though, they did not really deal with their past, neither in Germany nor in the general Catholic Church, because Pope Pius, you say in English, or Pius?
I think so. Yeah, Pius.
Pius the 12th, former Cardinal Pacelli, and was the ambassador of the Vatican in Munich during the 20s and 30s, and he kind of introduced Hitler into the Catholic, mainly aristocrat Bavarian elites. Yes, and where again we do see that fascism, as in Italy, as in Spain, was a lot supported by old elites, amongst them also Catholics. I wouldn't say that it was just the Catholics, of course not. And that's a part, the church played, which should be discussed more.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Maybe one other thing, also the first acts though of commemoration, also days of commemoration, as well in Israel for Yom HaShoah, started as religious events. What started Yom HaShoah in Israel in the 50s was a massive burial of ashes from Flossenburg in Yad Vashem, actually in the memorial hall of Yad Vashem, where most of the ceremonies are taking place. Not the big ceremony that took place there today, where still 6 survivors light 6 torches for the 6 million. But the dealing with that also came from the rabbinate first. And what you might think was a national consensus in Israel wasn't a national consensus. There were actually quite a lot of people that also for a long time opposed to talk about this past, because it did not fit the idea of the new Hebrews, so to say, the strong, powerful country that is able to defend itself. And for a long time, also until the 60s, yes, the Eichmann trial played a very important role for that in Israel, to listen to the stories of the people that survived and that were representatives very often, obviously, also of people that died, of victims, because it was their family that was lost, but they survived. And only from that Eichmann trial on, you also started to listen more and make the story of survivors also part of the commemoration of the Shoah, of the Holocaust.
Hello.
Yes.
May I? Yes. Hello, Alexander. Thank you for your tour. My name is Mark. I'm speaking to you from Ottawa in Canada.
Yes. Yes.
I would like to share with you the story of a lady who I am looking after in a long-term care facility here in Ottawa, who is 2 months away from her 100th birthday and who is a Holocaust survivor. Now, she did not spend time in any of the camps, but she survived through portraying herself as a Christian. Mm-hmm. She was from what is now the Ukrainian city of Lvov, and she moved around Poland, and then she eventually ended up by a complicated route in Berlin.
Okay. Yes.
She told me that she arrived in Berlin, and she was on a bus, and somehow she spoke to a young woman who I suppose she spoke to for a little while, and who offered to take her in. And my friend said, "I must tell you, I'm not a prisoner. So she said, what are you then? And she said, I'm a Jew. And the girl put her finger to her lips and said, shh, come off the bus with me, which my friend did. And the girl said, I'm going to take you to my mother. Her mother helped my friend, and he gave her room and food and so on for a period of time. And my friend said to the lady, why are you doing this? And the lady said, my husband's life was saved by a Jewish gentleman in St. Petersburg during the Bolshevik Revolution, and I am repaying the debt.
Well, yes.
I wanted to share.
And thank you for sharing this beautiful story. Maybe I did not emphasize this enough also on this tour, that obviously, as I said at the end, survivors are witnesses of what happened. They sometimes also feel to a great deal, and maybe too much of a deal, as a representatives of those that did not survive. But obviously we have also all these many stories of what you call the righteous amongst the nations, of people that helped, like
Yes.
the story you just shared.
Thank you.
I forgot something that I promised you to share. I just remembered it now. And as we can't go there with the tour, but I wanted to show how this memorial looks from below, from the museum that I mentioned. And one second. So this is a hall where under these blocks that we can see from above, you have displays where letters are shown, letters of people that some of them were written in literally their last minutes. There is a letter of a girl. Sorry, where is there? Oh, sorry, I don't see the translation. Okay, but I know the letter by heart. So there is a letter here from Judith Vishnitskaya that writes under a letter of her mom to her dad, who managed to escape. And this daughter is writing, "They're killing us all. We are waiting here. I'm so scared because they're waiting outside mass shooting. And I would love so much to hug you one more last time, Papa." This letter got out, and you have many of these fragments that tell stories to this rather nameless gray blocks. And then at another part of the exhibition, this is, can you see this picture is to be a bit dark?
We can see them.
Okay. You have blocks, as if these blocks are going down. Yeah. And in this, you have stories of whole families. So it goes from the events of killing to the families that were killed. And then there is a last room. This is on the video. Okay, I can't share this video, but there's one more room in this underground level where they read names. Not all, but all the names they have of victims. And it struck me once when I read there that if they would read all the names of the victims with, it's like a minute and a half, with a little bit about their biographic information of what we know, if we would read all the names of all the victims in such a way, it would take more than 7 years, yeah, to commemorate all the names. But we don't have all the names. Below here also is a research facility which works together with other institutions such as Yad Vashem and also the Washington-based Holocaust Museum to find out as many names as possible and many stories as possible. Because there is a saying in Judaism that you actually can die twice. Once you die and once you are forgotten. And we try here not to forget, not just the event, of course, but also the people that were in it. Thank you.
So Alexander, I wanted to thank you so much for that. I'm actually quite close to you. I'm living in Charlottenburg. I'm a Canadian who's on medical leave, and I'm working at the Free University. And I just got here about a month ago. And my wife too was watching your presentation. And I think we're going to retrace your steps this weekend and see if we can follow the Alexander tour and have a look at some of those memorials in person. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, and also, I mean, if you are in Berlin or you're coming to Berlin, I do tours in the city, not just related to what we've talked about today. Yes, and yeah, feel free to contact me. Micah, if you could share my email in the chat, that's probably easiest. Yeah, and I'd love to hear back from you, even if you're not coming touring, even if you have other questions, because, you know, sometimes things come up after a while or you come across information. I always love to hear and get a feedback. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. If there
Thanks,
are no
Alexander, again.
Hello,
It's Marcia in
Marcia.
Ottawa. Yes, hi.
Yes.
I've written
Hi.
you a couple of little notes. So anyway, thank you. This was most informative, really informative. And I did have one quick question. In the, well, I still call it the Reichstag. Are they still doing conferences and meetings in there?
It is the Parliament of Germany. It's the
Oh,
Parliament.
it's
It's the that's maybe I didn't make yeah, no, I actually said it's the federal parliament, the Bundestag. Yeah.
Okay.
So it is since well, it wasn't in use from 1933 until 1999. Yeah, so for 66 years. And so it's because West Berlin wasn't the capital of West Germany. Then it was moved, it was used for conventions and exhibitions. Now it's the Parliament of Germany.
Yeah, because I was at a conference there once, and it was quite an experience. The curtain, the windows had these wood covers that could go up and down, and in the middle of someone speaking, they by accident they went automatically and started coming down, and the noise of them, everybody literally jumped out of their chairs and hit the ground. So you realized how the spirits in there were still very alive and well, and that, you know, it was an indigenous conference. And so it wasn't all Jewish, and we all had the same reaction, and did a lot of talking about it after. So yeah, that's one of my memories. Anyway, I must go, but you take care, and thanks again. And thanks to the German Embassy here in Ottawa. It's really appreciated. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of the embassy for a very informative and thought-provoking tour today. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye. I will, you too. Thank you very much.